Welcome to Citizens Reunited to Overcome Cancer. We know it as the CROC podcast. When did giving a go out of style? When our survivor thrivers get referred to an outside specialist by their oncology team, is there usual adequate communication and follow-through? The sad answer is a resounding no. So this week, Dr. E addresses the growing trend of widespread apathy and lack of giving a. The CROC podcast starts right now.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Here is your host, Dr. E.
Howdy, everybody. Dr. Tommy and Ellie here with you guys with another great CROC podcast, along with my partner in crime, Mr. Angel Santana from Have Faith, Let It Begin. Angel, it seems like it's been a while since we've recorded.
You know, it does, but even though we're not together, the CROC Nation, Citizens Reunited to Overcome Cancer, is such a family that even though when you're far away from me, we're only a text away. So yes, we may have been not on the air last week, but we've been on the air every day.
Much appreciation, and I have to also appreciate and give gratitude to the board. It feels to me, Angel, like they're on fire. I think that they're really trying to make some changes to make the podcast more accessible, to make the podcast more available, to make the podcast more right. What would be the word? Right there for you, because I think a lot of people don't know about it. I'm probably the worst marketer in the whole world, so that's part of the problem. But as we get better and as we get to reach more people, more survivor thrivers, the better, right?
Absolutely. And a reminder to everybody out there that's listening to the CROC podcast, we have bracelets. That's right. And I'm telling you right now, I've got leftover bracelets of the old version because we've got a new one coming out. They're black. It says the CROC podcast, crocvip.com, and we're giving them away for free. All you have to do is take a picture of you subscribing to us, send it to us on Twitter, and we will send you a bracelet. I'm even going to pay on behalf of Have Faith, Let It Begin. I'm paying for the shipping. All you got to do is take a picture and we're going to give you a bracelet. What do you think about that, Dr. E?
I want you to mail me a bracelet.
You got it. It's on its way.
I'm gonna take a picture of myself subscribing to the CROC podcast.
You know what? I'm going to do it too.
So, Angel, I've been struggling with this podcast because, I always say to myself, we're a family show. And of course, you have a faith-based podcast. And I have this really passionate position as it relates to this week's podcast, because I do a lot of podcasts pointing out some of the deficiencies from the medical end, from your physicians, from your care team, from your hospitals. And I'm not afraid, and Angel's not afraid to point out these blemishes in an attempt to try to make the care better for you guys, for our beloved survivor thrivers. And I say to myself, we have this really, really great family podcast, but I am so angry about this particular subject that actually I used a swear word in the middle of the title. So the title of this week's podcast, today's lesson, is When Did Giving a Shit Go Out of Style? So if I'm going to offend anybody by swearing, I do apologize in advance, but I really feel that is the best word that describes and alliterates my personal despair when it comes to trying to make sure that our survivor thrivers have a good experience during their treatments and thereafter. For example, I always tell our patients that if they ask me a question or if they ask me if something is going to get done, I give them the following answer. If it's within my control, as long as there's breath in my lungs, it will get done. If there's something that's out of my control, I can no longer issue that guarantee. So in essence, today's podcast is about what happens to our survivor thrivers who are being hopefully protected the same way that I'm protecting them, and my group and my staff are protecting them when they're within, our bosom. But then when they leave our bosom, say we refer them to get a test, or we refer them for an x-ray, or we refer them to a dentist, or refer them for rehab, or refer them to a specialist for one of the issues that are either related or not related to their cancer, then that goes into that black box, that goes into that area where we don't have control. And I've been experiencing more and more every week. It's happening more and more frequently. And that's, I'm rubbing elbows and I'm co-managing patients with people who just do not give a shit. And it's bugging me, and I really need to talk about it. Angel, may I talk about it?
Yeah, and for the record, you're forgiven.
Thank you, my friend. Thank you. So a couple of weeks ago, we talked about a couple of circumstances about a couple of patients that particularly irked me. And I was trying to figure out what it was that was irking me. And then I figured it out. It had to deal with this subject. So when I see a patient and I get the information, many times some information is missing. So I'll see a patient, I'll see a survivor thriver, and I'll begin the process of getting to know them. They're getting to know me. We're doing the consultation, and then I have to put out what's called the consultation note. Now, sometimes that consultation note will be incomplete because I don't have all the information. So then what I'll do is I will begin a note. I will begin a running task list on that particular patient on things that need to get done. Check pathology, check old records, check previous radiation treatments, check MRI that was done in August, check, and I go through this checklist. And every one of those checklists, has to be crossed out before I could even begin to start treatments on this patient. And I have called myself the king of lists, the kings of callback. And I even have come up with another device. It's a 1 month fall through the cracks appointment. Make sure patients don't fall through the cracks. And that's the 1 month follow through to make sure these patients don't fall through the cracks, because you guys deserve that level of oversight. So let's talk a little bit about testing. So the sad truth about testing is that every time a doctor runs a test, it opens up a can of worms. And I'm going to give you an example. So we live in a very high-tech, high-testing epoch, in medicine. I remember even 35 years ago, the physical examination was a big deal. And they spent a lot of time teaching us how to do a proper physical examination, touching a patient, how to actually listen to a patient, how to auscultate, meaning use your stethoscope, how to percuss, where you take your fingers and you bang them against the patient's viscera to hear if there's any fluid or if there's solid tissue or whatever. Palpation, where you're actually touching and feeling and trying to figure out what the abnormality is. And I would make a guess that patients are getting touched by their physicians. And when I say getting touched, I don't mean that inappropriately. I mean being examined less and less and less and less. I think doctors are pretty much, turfing the examination in favor of getting blood work or getting an X-ray or getting an ultrasound or getting an MRI. And it's giving them an excuse to forfeit that very, very sacred event. And that event is the physical examination. So since we're in this, we have all of this technology, and the scans are unbelievable that come out now. It's almost like doing an autopsy on a live patient. It's almost like holding a liver in your hand or holding a spleen in your hand, being able to put your hand into somebody's brain and look. And it's certainly, I can understand the allure of the hands-off approach in effect with technology. But what has not developed as quickly as technology is the ability to keep up with this technology and actually being able to follow this up with the patient. So for example, every time a test is ordered, whether it's blood, x-rays, a biopsy, it opens up a never-ending cascade of dominoes. So for instance, I ordered a total body iodine scan on a patient with, very curable, well-differentiated thyroid cancer who's going to live forever. There was some abnormal uptake in the liver. I knew it was negative, but what am I going to do? I have to follow that up. So then I get an MRI of the abdomen. The liver's fine. However, now there's a small cyst in the pancreas. So now I have to send the patient to GI. They have to do a scope. They have to do an ERCP. They have to do a biopsy. And now 4 months later, it's negative. But that's what I put that patient through just by ordering a test. So why do we do this? So for the most part, Angel, we do this because we don't want to miss anything. So I always try to give our field and our beautiful practitioners who take care of our beloved survivor thrivers the benefit of the doubt. So I want to think that they do it for very valid and very sacred reasons, and that's to protect the patient and make sure they don't miss anything. But there's also the second level, and that's the medical legal level, where no one wants to get sued. So the majority of lawsuits that happen in the medical legal field are about misdiagnoses. So it's about a woman who goes in and have a breast mammogram, and they're told the breast mammogram is fine, come back in 2 years, come back in 3 years. They come back in 3 years, and their whole breast is full of cancer, as is the rest of their body. And when they go back to look at that, actually, that mammogram, there was actually something there that could have been that could have been cured, and and that's a problem. So we have already into the system this problematic this algorithm that's a problem. So the entire system is wrong because, number one, we rely on technology. Number two is that we're limited in what we can do for a patient. We can't do everything. So if I take care of a patient with prostate cancer and they get rectal bleeding from the radiation, I have to send them to a GI doctor. I send them to a GI doctor, and the GI, then they go into this black hole where I have no control of the patient. I have to trust that the doctor that I'm sending them to is someone I have a relationship with, someone that I trust, someone that I think is very good at what they do, but also, and most importantly, or maybe just as importantly, is they're very professional. I know they're going to take good care of my patient, and I know that they're going to make sure that they circle back and let me know what's going on. So we have 2 examples today that for Dr. E's I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore episode. One is a patient that had metastatic cancer and had a lesion in the hip. So I took care of the lesion. I irradiated it. He did great. Maybe 2 years later, came back. I gave him a second course of radiation, did well for a while. Then his pain came back. So I couldn't do anything any further because I had given that patient as much radiation as I could safely give. So what I did was I sent the patient to a specialist, an orthopedic oncologist. That's an orthopedist who does extra work, extra training to take care of cancer patients. I didn't send them to Kalamazoo, General Hospital. I didn't send them to to Bangor, Maine. I sent them to Columbia University. So Columbia Presbyterian University Hospital, one of the best hospitals in the world. And I sent them to the chief of orthopedic oncology. The chief of orthopedic oncology saw my patient, and I thought everything was great. Everything was fine. I never got a call back from the doctor. He saw the patient once, and then the guy came back to me 2 years later, absolutely out of his mind, rageful, because that issue with his hip wasn't taken care of. He ended up having to have major surgery at another big institution in the city, and it was a bloody mess. It was absolutely horrible. He had pain and suffering, and he came back and blamed it all on me. So shame on me, because that patient went into the black box, and shame on that doctor because they didn't give a shit. I referred the patient to them. They saw the patient, probably put together a quick 2-minute letter that they probably wrote in crayon that I never received, and then never gave a follow-up appointment, never called me to tell me, what was going on, never had a plan of action, never had any follow-through for this patient. So this patient was poorly served because he ran into a very common problem. That problem is just people not giving a shit, people just not caring. And I think, what is the responsibility, Angel, of the referring doctor? So the referring doctor is me. So I identified the indications for the referral. I had given this patient 2 courses of radiation to the hip. I couldn't give him any more. I needed to send him to a specialist. So I found an orthopedic oncologist. I had to find the best, most competent doctor, which I felt I did. I sent them to chief of staff at Columbia Presbyterian Orthopedic Oncology. But what I didn't do was I didn't have a history with this doctor. I just basically found them, heard about them and sent them because the physician was not professional, meaning that I could not trust that the patient would get everything done. For example, of all the calls that I get, right? So I have to give a lot of freebie information every day. A doc will call me and say, "Hey, listen, can you take a look at this X-ray for me?" Or, "Hey, I have this case and I don't know what to do." And that takes a couple hours of my day is doing these freebies, these curbside consults. And why do I get these, Angel? Because these doctors know I'll do it. These doctors know that they can trust me. These doctors know that I give a shit and I will actually look at these films and I will give them my best opinion and I will follow through until I then am able to hand the ball off to the next person, to allow that patient, that survivor thriver, to get to the next level of care. And they know that I will follow through. And as I said 3 times, they know that I give a shit. So I did not know this doctor. So that was the problem. Number 3, and the most important thing that I think the referring physician has to do, and I didn't do this, so I'm kind of teaching myself a little bit on these podcasts as well, is that to circle back just to make sure that everything was done properly. So on this case, I didn't circle back or didn't put this patient onto a list because I thought and I trusted that I didn't need to do that, but of course I didn't. What is the responsibility of the specialist? The responsibility of that specialist is to accept the patient only if they feel they can help and accommodate them. I don't care if you're the best doctor in the world or you are the best orthopedic oncologist in the world, but if you don't have time to fit my person in for 3 months, or if you don't feel that you can give them the proper attention that they deserve, you may be the best, but I don't want you. I don't want you touching my patient because you're worthless. You're useless because you don't give a shit. So I have a problem with that. Number 2 is that they need to do their best effort at excellent and timely care. So again, I don't want you to tell me, "Yeah, I'll see your patient in 3 months." I want you to see this patient on Tuesday. I don't want that. Number 3, they need to circle back to us. They have to circle back to the referring physician and come up with a treatment plan. And then they have to satisfy that treatment plan. Or if they can't satisfy it anymore, they could either send the patient back to me, the referring physician, or then move on to another colleague who might live in it or practice in a different city or whatever that might have a specific expertise in that particular issue. It's their responsibility. That survivor thriver is on their dime until they let them go. You can't just let a patient go without telling anybody, not telling the patient, and not having any follow through. So it's the continuation and the continued follow-up of these open issues. Remember those lists, those callbacks, those checkoff boxes. Everybody's got to do it. And if you're not doing it, and if you're relying on your technology, or if you're relying on your staff, you know what? You're going to get burned and you're going to hurt somebody because you didn't give a shit. You didn't give a shit enough to be OCD. You didn't give a shit enough to really be absolutely blinded with a passion and devotion for your survivor thriver. What is the responsibility of the doctor ordering a test? So in this case, the specialist dropped the ball, and the referring physician, which was me, trusted them to give a shit to do their job, but they didn't. So that is the situation with this particular case. As a quick sidebar, I will say this: the sad truth of tertiary care doctors, meaning that these doctors, these specialists, these orthopedic oncologists, these neurologists, all of these specialists, is they have tunnel vision. They only see this one thing. They only see this one problem, and it's also, prevalent in, or prevalent in radiation oncology, medical oncology, or all of these tertiary care specialties because we're focused on cancer. But what if the survivor thriver is having a problem outside of cancer? We have to be able to deal with that. So here is a really key concept, Angel, is that why is it crucial to keep the patient's primary care physician involved? And it's for exactly this reason, because of our tunnel vision. So it is such a sin that we waste, this talent, the talent of the primary care physician. We waste this opportunity to keep them in the loop. How many times did a primary care physician call me over the years and say, your secretary never sent me copied me on your consultation note, because the consultation note went to the oncologist who was referring the patient to me. It should also go to the primary care physician. One of the worst things you could do to a primary care physician is rabbit punch them. So a patient that has a breast lump goes to the mammographer, then gets referred to the surgeon, has the biopsy, has the surgery, has the chemotherapy, has the radiation. They show up in their primary care physician office 8 months after he sent them for a mammogram, and they had no idea that the patient had any of this done. Instead of trying to hold the primary care physician in the dark or keep them in the dark and waste this resource, they can make your life so much better. They can help deliver better care to the survivor because you can lean on them to follow up some of these abnormalities. So I had a patient just today, had an abnormality, had a cardiac abnormality. So I said, okay, I'm going to take care of your cancer. I'm not a cardiologist. I'm not a primary care physician. Here's what you're going to do. We're going to call your primary care physician right this second. We're going to get all these records as it relates to this abnormality, and they're going to take care of you. And that's what you got to do. You have to use your primary care physicians as a resource. Case number 2. So here is a woman, I think we talked about her before, who had this big, large thyroid goiter, and it was pushing onto her airway, pushing into her trachea and her esophagus. And she came to see me for iodine 131. And I said, I'm happy to do the iodine, but it's going to take about a year or two to shrink that mass. Why don't we just cut this thing out? And not only can we cut it out to take care of this big goiter you have, it'll take care of your hyperthyroidism. And in addition to that, it'll make you look like you don't have this huge, melon growing in your neck. And number 3 is that we'll rule out any cancer in case there's any cancer hidden in that gland. So I present the case to the tumor board. The ENT said to me, hey, we need a CAT scan. So of course, being the little bitch that I am, I got the CAT scan for this surgeon, and I presented to him the CAT scan and says, yes, I'll do surgery, but now I'm not doing surgery until the endocrinologist fixes the numbers. He makes the medicine, perfect and makes the patient ready for surgery. I said, okay, fine. So then I call the endocrinologist and I said, take care of this. And of course, did the endocrinologist take care of it? No, absolutely not. Did the surgeon take care of it or follow through on it? Absolutely not, because nobody gives a shit. They just want money and they just want to do their thing, and they don't want any sweat. They don't want to get their hands dirty. They just want everything handed to them. Well, here's a news flash for you. If you're a doctor and you're taking care of survivor thrivers, guess what? Get your hands dirty. It's part of the job. Be humble. There is nothing beneath you. You have to serve your patient in any way you have to. I don't care if you have to make phone calls yourself. I don't care if you have to, do research yourself. I don't care if you have to keep bugging people and keep pushing and pushing and pushing. That's okay. That's your job. Get your hands dirty. Give a shit. You get it, Angel? Am I making myself clear?
Absolutely. I've got a final thought, but I think you're not done yet, right?
No, I am done. I just wanted to make sure that I did want to, but let me do this. I'm going to just tie it all together. I'm going to tie it all together, and then I'm going to let you comment. So I have just 5 rules here. Number 1, first and foremost, please, 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 never stop giving a shit. When you went to medical school, you killed yourself. You probably killed yourself just to get into medical school. Then you got into medical school, and then you killed yourself. And just when you thought you killed yourself and you couldn't give any more, Then you went into residency, and then you thought medical school was kindergarten, because then you didn't sleep for 3 days, and then you had pressure on you, and you had to do the right thing, and you really cared. You gave a shit. And let's admit it. Admit it to me and Angel. There was a time in your career that you gave a shit. Don't ever stop giving a shit about your patients. Number one. Number two, if you are not OCD, if you don't have obsessive compulsive disorder, become OCD, even if it's just for your patients. Be the king of lists, be the king of the callbacks, be the king of making sure you put systems in place that your patients don't fall through the cracks. As I said, become the list man, become the list lady, set up systems that are redundant and safe. When I'm a scuba diver, when I go scuba diving, if I do it recreationally, I have one tank. But if I was somebody who was doing wreck diving or cave diving, you're always redundant. There's always several sources of air in case you get stuck somewhere in a crevice or something falls on you, or if you're diving with a, without access to being able to go right to the surface and you run out of air, you're either dead or you have redundancy or you have safety systems. Put safety systems so your patients don't fall through the cracks. Number three, find colleagues that aren't just great, but are professionals. People that you can absolutely trust, that you're friends with, that you would go to yourself, that you would send your parents to, that you would send your kids to. Doctors that give a shit and will circle back and actually care about the care of your patient. It used to be such a privilege to get a call from a colleague for a consult. That meant they thought enough about you to ask you to see their patient. And it was like, wow, of course, Angel, I would be honored to see your patient. Now I get, well, I'm kind of busy. I don't know if I could see them. I don't think, I'm going to be going away, or I don't think I could do it, or, okay, I'll do it, maybe, whatever. And then you never hear from them again. You want to find colleagues that you could work with. Number four, to my survivor thrivers, never stop being your best advocate. I visited a cousin in Chicago this past week on vacation, and it was an attorney. He knew nothing about medicine and he was having some cardiac issues. And I said, well, tell me a little bit about this, Lou. And what he did was he brought a book. He bought a book that was about maybe 12 inches thick. And he went to the part about where he was having his symptoms, what day he went to the doctor, what doctor he went to see, what the doctor said to them, what the testing were, the results of the testing. This guy was together. I need you guys to be together, because guess what? Most of the clinicians don't give a shit. So you need to give a shit. You need to care about yourself and your health, and you need to be your best advocate. So never stop doing that. And finally, number five, never exclude the primary care physician from the case. Keep the primary care physician, keep your primary care aware of what's going on, both for the physician as well as the patient. Angel Santana, your thoughts?
Well, I got to tell you, one of the things that I thought about when you were telling all this is I remember the movie from Cool Hand Luke, and there's a famous quote, and it's, "What we have here is a failure to communicate."
Yes, Strother Martin.
There you go. See, I knew you would know this. And I said, I'm going to go with this quote because I know you would appreciate it. But then I thought about some more. I said, here's the issue. When you hear that quote, one of the things that stands out for me is a lack of communication leaves fear and doubt. And we live in a world now where most people deal and want instant gratification. Well, you can't get instant gratification even when you don't communicate. So bad communication ends in a lot of good things, right? Good communication can end in a lot of bad things, right? But
yeah,
but the key factor is what you just said, and that is we have to communicate. We have to, and this is what's lacking in the world today.
But it's more than just communication, and I think that's a brilliant statement. But it's actually caring. I use the very crass, expression, not giving a shit. But I did want it to be dramatic, and I did want to use that word because I am really angry, and it's probably not just in healthcare. It's probably just this ubiquitous, feeling. Just people are just not caring. They're not being kind. They're not being professional. They're not being empathetic. It's just surviving, getting through the day and not just making sure that, they're everything's okay in their little world. And it's not good enough. If you went into medicine and you wanted to do that, then you should have gotten a job working at a bank or doing something like that where you can go home and leave your job home. I always tell people, the greatest, you read all these these self-help books, leave your job at your job. Well, if you're a healer, bring your work home, bring your feelings home, bring your concern about your patients home, give a shit, care. And it's missing in pretty much every industry, whether it be the airline industry, who couldn't care less whether you get to where you need to go, whether you miss your connection, whatever, they don't care. No one cares. You go to a restaurant, you get a bad meal. They don't really care anymore. There was a time where a restaurateur would serve a bad meal and their livelihood could basically evaporate, because people would then talk badly about the restaurant and then they wouldn't get the business. But no one really cares about that anymore. No one cares. So that's my perspective.
No, and I agree with you. And I was going to get to that. I think the best way I can sum that part up, we're in a world right now where it doesn't cost you anything to be kind.
Exactly. And in this world, and kindness can be more than just saying hello to somebody when you pass them in the hall. That's nice. It's kind, rather than the whole, like I'm passing people in the hall in the hospital. I mean, if you're not looking at your cell phone, you're looking down at the ground. No one's looking at people. There's no eye contact. There's no hello. That's kindness in one expression. But another way to be kind is to be good at what you do and be a professional and follow through. Because at the end of the day, you're not chopping steaks, you're not making omelets, you're not baling hay, you're taking care of people who are sick, especially our survivor thrivers who are suffering with cancer.
Hear, hear.
Angel, I want to be able to, as I said in the beginning of the podcast, thank the board they are on fire. You guys are amazing. Thanks for all. You guys are probably noticing, at least our regular listeners are seeing the changes. Let us know if you like the changes. Let us know if you like the new introduction. Let us know if you like the way we're branding ourselves now, not just as CROC or the CROC podcast, but Citizens Reunited to Overcome Cancer, to be able to brand us to be a little clearer. And we want to make sure that we get this product to you guys to help you with all the tools you need for a better survivorship. And of course, there are no group of people that Angel and I and the board respect and absolutely adore more than you guys. You have been given just a terrible diagnosis, a terrible disease. You're afraid. You are in pain. You are absolutely terrorized, and your world has fallen apart. It's really important that you guys know there are people here that really feel your pain and really feel things that you don't feel in yourselves anymore. You've given up on yourselves. You guys don't feel strong anymore. You guys don't feel courageous anymore. You guys don't feel worthy. And it's exactly the opposite. You guys are loved. You are cared about. You are courageous. You are worthy. You are special. You are spectacular. And we will end our podcast tonight the way we end every podcast, and that's with the Dr. E and Angel blessing, wishing all of our survivor thrivers a long, healthy, happy, and cancer-free life. God be with you. God bless you. Peace.
Hey, CROC Nation. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the podcast to your friends. Visit our website, crocvip.com. We would love to hear your feedback.